As we go through the 24-hour cycle of our life, we face different challenges. We face trials and tribulations that basically make us who we are. Overcoming those challenges is what creates our character and our personality in this world. Now, when presented with today's quote that circumstances don't defeat you, you defeat yourself when you give up, I cannot help but adamantly agree with this concept. And we can see the validity of it in three facets of analysis. First, the famous story of Martin Luther King Jr. Second of all, through one of my favorite novels, The Running Girl. And third of all, through my favorite story of my grandpa's life in India. Now let's begin. All of us have studied the civil rights movement. It'd be a crazy thing if we grew up in America and didn't know what it was. Now, the most famous speaker of that time was Martin Luther King Jr., a young African-American pastor who inspired millions across America with just his words and actions. Now, we can see that throughout his lifetime, he faced several instances of racism, hate, threats, and basically feeling a lack of love in his life. Now, many of us can see that his struggles were what made him who he was. Despite the fact that he lost one of his siblings in assassination, and despite the fact that he faced threats every single day, he decided to persevere. Despite the fact that he faced racism since he was just a little boy, he decided to not give up. Like this quote says, circumstances don't defeat you. You defeat yourself when you give up. Martin Luther King Jr. did not give up. Because he decided to persevere, he eventually got to achieve, and because of it, he's known as one of the most motivational speakers of all time in this country. Now, while Martin Luther King Jr. is maybe one of the most famous people of all time in this country, the protagonist of the book, Running Girl, was one of the most famous people of my time in middle school. The Running Girl is a story about a young teenager attending high school who is a varsity track runner. But on the way back from one of her biggest successes, she gets into a car accident. This car accident causes her to lose her leg. A track runner, a girl who basically jogs, runs, everything through life, loses her leg. Now obviously, like this quote says, this was a circumstance that she felt might defeat her passion for running. But because she decided to persevere, because she decided to basically let the world see who she was as not just an injured or disabled person, but as someone who loved running for all their life. Because she was able to persevere, she was able to not only get a prosthetic, but eventually become a Paralympian at the end of the book. Now we can see in this story that her circumstances were literally dire. She lost her leg. For a girl who running was her entire life, she literally lost a part of her passion, a part of her soul. But because she was able to persevere, she didn't let her circumstances defeat herself, and she was successful in the end. Now, when I was growing up in Troy, I realized that a lot of us face challenges in our life, and sometimes they're to a different scale. One person that inspired me to face my challenges was my grandpa. Now, when my grandpa was growing up in India, he was in a time of strife. At that time, India was involved in a civil war that basically split the country into India and Pakistan. And at just a young age of 11 years old, he was captured by Pakistani rebels, forced to leave his family, convert his religion, basically abandon his entire lifestyle and traditions. His circumstances were an environment of oppression, an environment where there was no hope and no love to hold on to. But because he was able to persevere, because he helped people around him contact the Indian government, because he was able to be rescued and put back into his environment, he was able to find success for himself. He didn't let his circumstances and environment of oppression defeat his entire life goal. He was able to get a scholarship and come to America and start a family. And it's thanks to him that I am here today. He didn't let the fact that his entire lifestyle and traditions were taken away from him basically ruin his whole life. Now, obviously, my grandpa, at just a young age of 11, losing his older brother to this war, could have just sat down afterwards and decided to live a quiet life. But because he was able to believe in himself and believe in his abilities, he was able to become the amazing man of 80 years old as he is today. Now, since we've all learned about Martin Luther King Jr., we all understand the trials and tribulations he underwent. We can see that he didn't let his circumstances of racism, oppression, and hate defeat his goal in life. He didn't let that hate, that threat, that basically anger towards him keep him from being the amazing man that he was. Just like the protagonist in Running Girl, she didn't let this dire condition ruin her life. While yes, she lost her leg, she still pursued her career as a track runner. just like my grandpa didn't give up after he came back to India. And what we can see from this is that we can never give up because our circumstances don't defeat us. We defeat ourselves when we give up. Thank you.